2020, within the gun owning community, we welcomed 8.5 million new people. Some of these people went to the gun shops and either they didn't have the time to research, or if they did research, they didn't have what they were looking for. So a lot of people either made uninformed decisions or they had to settle. And that might have been a problem. Now, within defensive handguns nowadays, there's 3 types of triggers to consider. We're not going to talk about the single action. What we are going to do is we're going to talk about double action and striker fired. Double action. Many people have a hard time deciding what they prefer when it comes to a double action, single action handgun or the striker fired handgun. And these are 2 different systems that both have their advantages, but often the double action, single action gun takes more time to master over the striker fired gun. The market is literally filled with both options, and most companies make variations of both. In this case, what I'm holding up right now is CZ. This is the CZ P07. This is the CZ P10C. Striker fired, double action. Now, double action, single action, hammer fired handguns have been around for the last few hundred years. And they have been extremely popular and were standard. Well, they were the standard before the striker fire handguns came out. The first shot is typically double action or heavier pull, hammer down, 7 to 12 pounds, with the follow-up shot being a lighter trigger pull. And this single action trigger pull is usually between 3 and 8 pounds. And for the DA/SA gun, which is considerably lighter than the first shot. Now, people like these, enjoy these, because under stress it takes a deliberate trigger pull to fire the weapon. And this form factor has some unique advantages, some unique positives. With hammer-fired handguns, you also get a second strike capability. Now, what does that mean? So, hammer back, you're now in single action. Boom, you pull the trigger, nothing goes off, nothing happens. The primer did not ignite, the round is not headed down. So this means you can pull the trigger a second time, hitting the primer again. But the downside, once again, to this system is the difference in trigger pulls between the first and the second shot. And the difference between the 2 shots is usually enough for a beginner shooter to shoot low or miss the second shot. So, like all things, this can be fixed by going to the range. But it does take time to master. Getting used to the 2 trigger pulls can be done with time, but starting off, it can be really difficult for people who are beginners. And just as an aside, here's this gun, the P07, on the range.
Threat, threat, threat!
Striker fired handguns. Striker fired are the new breed of handguns. They're the newer style. Companies like Glock, H&K, CZ, Smith & Wesson, over the last few years, they've all made a striker fired gun. Most new shooters go with the striker fired handgun over the double action handgun because they are easier to master. They're easier to manipulate. They're easier to consistently shoot. A large percentage of competition shooters like striker fired or single action only handguns. This is because they always have the same trigger pull, no matter what. And that's usually going to be between 5 and 7 pounds, depending on the gun and the trigger. And this is in between the 2 actions in the hammer-fired handguns, and it never changes since there's only 1 action rather than the 2 different types. One downside to the striker-fired handgun is the lack of second strike capability. So if I'm out there and I pull the trigger here and it does not go off, I now have to go into remedial action. I have to rack the slide, reset the trigger. Now, hammer-fired guns are able to strike every time the trigger is pulled without being reset. This is one of the only downsides to the striker-fired gun, though. These are typically simpler, and they have less moving parts. They tend to be really reliable for the most part, and, of the most well-known, Glock is one of the most well-known striker fires out there. The United States Army has recently decided to switch from a double-action, single-action Beretta M9 to the Sig Sauer P320 or the M17, which is the official military name. The only difference being they put a safety on it. So the future in the design of handguns probably going to be striker fired, if I had to guess. It's a simpler system and more compact than hammer-based handguns. But once again, just to show you some of those characteristics, let's go to the range with this. So, what's my advice for the people looking to pick up their first handgun? First thing you need to do is to find a gun range where you can rent both styles of guns and try them out for yourself. It becomes really a matter of personal preference. I'm not the one to tell you which one's better than the other because I enjoy both types. A lot of things are going to come into play. Ergonomics, how it feels, how it shoots, how you like it. But both styles of guns have been proven reliable. Both are excellent examples of each one, whether it's Glock or Sig Sauer or CZ. And, you can go out there and look. You'll probably find a top 10 list for both the double-action guns and the striker-fired handguns as well. So keep an eye out and look for that. Go to the range. Try this out. There is no one-size-fits-all, but it is definitely well worth your time to do the investigation. Pick out that one gun that you want to be your carry gun and proceed. Coming up next, let's go do a little radio monologue, shall we? This is Lock and Load.
The largest small arms factory in the world, CZ Products, had become legendary. From the iconic CZ75 to modern favorites like the Scorpion and P10, CZ firearms are known for their quality, accuracy, and reliability without breaking the bank. CZ, for those who know.